Assalamualaikum and good afternoon all. Welcome to the inaugural Edacity Industry Leadership Discourse. I'm Nabila, your MC for today. The Edacity Industry Leadership Discourse this afternoon will consist of two sessions. The first one being the future of talent development via Apprenticeship Roundtable and the High Performance Leadership Masterclass with Henley Business School happening later at 5 p.m. Our first session will feature two experienced speakers, Mr. Wan Ahmad Saifuddin, Wan Ahmad Razi, Managing Director of Edacity Iskandar Malaysia, Sdn Bhd, and Mr. Hazmi Yusof, Managing Director Malaysia and Senior Vice President of Frost & Sullivan. Mr. Wan Ahmad Saifuddin has over 20 years of working experience in various senior management positions in education, e-business, and consultation. He holds a degree and master's degree in architecture from the University of Cambridge, United Kingdom. Backed by his years of compelling reputation in the fields of education and e-learning, knowledge management and transformation, Wan Ahmad is ready to transform Edacity into one of Asia's most reputable education hub. Mr. Hazmi Yusof is the Managing Director for Malaysia and oversees emerging markets in Asia, including Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam. His expertise lies in business and market intelligence and business transformation strategies. He has multi-regional experience working on projects in Asia, Middle East, Nepal, and Portugal. Hazmi has extensive expertise in business and market advisory, focusing on multiple industries including ICT, transportation, and the public sector. He is part of the Frost & Sullivan Global Smart Cities Thought Leadership Panel, and he has successfully led smart city projects in Malaysia and Portugal. Prior to joining Frost & Sullivan, Hazmi has worked with other consulting firms, including International Data Corporation and Rating Agency Malaysia. He was also the Group Business and Commercial Development Head at Container National Berhad. Welcome, Mr. Wan Ahmad and Mr. Hazmi. This session will also be moderated by none other than Mr. Manoj Menon, Founder and Managing Director of Twimbit. Prior to this, he was the MD and also Senior Partner at Frost & Sullivan in Asia Pacific, a position that he held for over 15 years. He started his career as an analyst with Frost & Sullivan and one of the founding members in the Asia Pacific region and progressed to work with a diverse variety of Asian business. He has consulted and worked with boards of several leading companies in industries such as telco, banking, and healthcare throughout his career. He went on to become the youngest partner in the firm and was responsible for making Frost & Sullivan a leading player across 13 countries in Asia. Welcome, Mr. Manoj. Before we start this exciting session, I would like to invite the head of Edacity Academy, Mr. Fauzan Mansoor, for a quick introduction of who we are and our offerings. Over to you, Fauzan.
Thank you, Nabila. I won't take a lot of time here. Let's spend more time on discussion with the panelists as well as moderator. So I'm just going to quickly share who is the Edacity Academy and what are actually our activities. So this webinar is actually one of our main key activities under Edacity Academy. We are currently engaging into two main activities: talent lifecycle solution and also ecosystem development for Edacity. Under the lifecycle solutions, we are responsible for talent management services, talent development programs, and under ecosystem development, we are also responsible for the development of research living lab under Edacity and various other education projects that are currently undertaken by Edacity. So I think in terms of the entity itself, we regard ourselves as a platform. We work well with HR experts and training partners all over the countries, as well as international speakers, international partners. We have a very strong and holistic PMO function framework, including training management, trainer management, as well as reporting. We also embed our own training management system and learning management system based on each organization into all of our trainings. And as you know, Edacity Iskandar is a multi-campus education city, a 305 acres multi-campus education city situated in Iskandar Puteri. So we have our reach to all the training facilities within the 305 acres, name it, if it's just a normal classroom, lecture theatres, or even if you want to do a training inside the swimming pool. So all the training facilities, we have it. And one of the things under Edacity Academy is that we work together alongside with another entity under Edacity, which is Edacity International College, on getting all our training programs to be micro-credentialed by the college. I think Cik Wan will be explaining more about this afterwards, so I'm not going to take a lot of time here. So right now we are focusing on these sectors: business, leadership, digital tech, customer service, digital and creativity and language, but we also cater towards customized talent management as well as talent development solutions to our partners. So I do encourage, or I do welcome everyone, especially the HR community as well as the talent management community in Skandar Puteri and Johor. Reach out to us, let's have a discussion and try to work on a solution or plan for both institutions. I think that's about it. Thank you, Nabila. I pass it back to you.
Cool. All right. Thank you for the introduction, Fauzan. Viewers, we would like to encourage all of you to be active in this session and interact with us in the comment section and post all your questions in the Q&A box down below. We will also be launching sample questions throughout the session, and we would like, if possible, your participation in this. If you would like to speak to the speakers or even the moderator himself, do raise your hand virtually in the Zoom platform, and our technical team will assist you. So without further ado, I would like to pass this platform to Mr. Manoj to kick off the session for today.
Thank you very much, Nabila. A very good afternoon to all of you. Really excited to be part of this session. Discuss a bit about talent development by leveraging apprenticeship. And joining me are two of my very dear friends. People who I've worked with now almost for over a decade. And in the case of one, maybe 2 decades. So first up, Encik Wan, thank you for this opportunity and congratulations on continuing to drive this series of programs in here. So great to have you on the session, Encik Wan. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I also have Hazmi Yusuf. I and Hazmi have worked together for a little over close to 2 decades. And 2 decades of extra kilos added everywhere from both of us, right, Hazmi?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Hello. Happy to be here, especially when my Sifu is moderating. How can I say no?
Wow. So great, and the reason Hazmi ended up in this session is because Hazmi, so the title of our session is Talent Development with Apprenticeship. And Hazmi is unique because Hazmi has done both apprenticeship and internship. So maybe we should first start, as we getting our fundamentals clear. So Hazmi, what is the difference between, and firstly, how did you end up doing both? You seem to have a lot of time. Or maybe that is what made you more successful, right? So firstly, what is the difference between apprenticeship and internship?
Okay.
And what has been your personal experience in going through both?
Firstly, let me excuse the knocking sound that you hear. I do not know why all the time it starts knocking now. It's so typical. Okay, to answer your question, Manoj, from my understanding and understanding of many people out there, apprenticeship is a bit more of a
We can't hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. I think that was my end. Okay. So apprenticeship, the difference is it's quite big actually. So apprenticeship is actually part of a academic course, right? Well, so when you get into an apprenticeship, your time at the workplace is actually being evaluated. It has more structure in the terms of what you do at the workplace, and there's typically, most of the time, there is either a credit or some form of accreditation towards your final certification. So that's apprenticeship on one hand. While internship is when it is not part of any academic degree or whatever certification that it's more on you want to go into to have work experience on your own accord. And typically when you've done your internship for 6 months or whatever, the best recognition you get is a reference letter, while apprenticeship is all about getting a score, a credit into your final degree. So it's actually quite a big difference. And I'm a big fan of apprenticeship because it's on one hand, from a student perspective, it teaches you things beyond the classroom, number one. Number two, and I think this is a challenge, and a challenge that I faced back in the day, is that it allows me to earn a living while being in higher learning. I think the challenge today, since day one, is basically, a lot of people, they get into higher learning and they struggle to maintain themselves in terms of covering their cost of living. And I think in where I started, where in Germany, you have that flexibility of doing your apprenticeship, getting paid, putting that into your savings, and when you're back in classroom, you're able to have money to as a student. I think that's on one hand, and I think on the other side of the coin, for the employers, I think there's a lot of alignment happens during this time where therefore the practicality of the modules that the university is teaching is aligned with the industry all the time as we go along. And I think and therefore there's naturally, it's by design, the relationship between academia and industry is closer, much closer. So I think that's the big thing from my experience.
So you're saying internship is more, it can be very subjective, it can be very poorly defined, and they can ask you to make photocopies, bring you cups of coffee. I think that's what happens, you're saying, during internship, is it?
One internship program, one summer that I did my internship, I became a Fuji Xerox expert. I know every nook and cranny roller of Fuji Xerox because that's what my supervisor asked me to do, photocopy stuff. So, you can have a great experience, and you can really have a lousy experience, and there's no way to kind of structure that properly. Yeah.
Excellent. And Chikwan, this definition of apprenticeship and internship, your take, and is it changing? Is that getting redefined in some way as well?
Yeah, I think in the Malaysian education system, a lot of programs actually have an internship portion. It really depends on the program, and right, internship tends to be a bit less structured. The time where the length of internship tends to vary, whereas apprenticeship is like Hazmi mentioned, is a very structured program, a very clear outcome. The monitoring and the mentoring, I think, is a lot more aligned to the company and the company's requirements at that point in time. So it's a great marriage, and it's a great transition between academia and workplace. And then there are also a lot of management trainee programs, which I suppose it's trying to bridge the gap. So you have fresh graduates going into as a management trainee, often, within the IIB group, which is the shareholders of EduCity. We also have a big management trainee program where the MT will go around the different businesses and then get exposure to the various facets of businesses. But yes, I think the main difference is a little bit more unstructured and coffee and Fuji Xerox versus a very, very focused sort of program.
And Chikwan, where are we today in Malaysia with both these programs? What is the current state of adoption by companies? how do you position ourselves today, in terms of maturity and development of these both, apprenticeship programs in the country?
Okay, I think if I can touch on bringing the extra term of TVET, because TVET is a highly debated sort of area right now. There is a lot of disconnect, I think, and there's a lot of fragmentation within the TVET market. We have in Malaysia 11 ministries that oversee different parts of TVET. There is no sort of overarching natural standard for TVET. We have various standards as well because they sit under many different ministries. And I think the government has a realization that this has to improve. If you go to the RMK 12, under developing future talent, I think that there is a concerted effort to centralize TVET governance. And I think this will really help. But at the same time, I think we can't wait for this to happen. So there are many programs. Even under EduCity Academy, we have our own program called Perantis Iskandar. So this is an apprenticeship program that's meant for unemployed graduates or people who are unemployed to go into what we call future-ready industries that have a high element of technology that will have longevity, and we're trying to follow a bit of the apprenticeship model. So when you start, you actually will receive a conditional offer letter if you get through the interview, and then you start your training, and then you go into the company. And we feel this is one of the great ways that we can kick off the apprenticeship model that is really industry driven, because the industry will interview and will, the candidates. We use a profiling tool that will try to match them to the kind of jobs that they will be facing. And then industry that needs a lot of talent has a very structured program to follow.
Correct. And before I go to the next question, I think Nabila, we have a poll question. I suppose you want to poll the audience. Can I have the poll question? Yeah, excellent. It's a very simple question, and I think let me see how many people get this. So the simple question: do you think training and development for staff is important? Yes or no? Yeah. So let's see. I think let me see if anybody has. Hosts and panelists can't vote, so I can't vote.
Yeah, that's so unfair. I tried to vote. Yeah.
I wanted to say no. Antiquan, maybe as we wait for the poll question results, I want to ask you. So if you say, what if you were the head of education in Malaysia, Ministry of Education, what is the ideal state that you would see for a great TVET or apprenticeship-driven program in the country? What would you regard as 100 out of 100 for the country? What would you define as success for the country?
Well, I think often we do look to the German model, which Hazmi has gone through. I think that is the gold standard out there. I think other countries like Australia and some of the Scandinavian countries also have very comprehensive programs. But if I can speak generally, because I think in our times, education in general, to me, should move more towards the apprenticeship model. There should be earlier involvement in the workplace, for regardless of discipline, regardless of subject matter, because there's always a huge shock to most people in the education system once you leave. Once you graduate and suddenly you start work, it's normally a huge shock to the system. I think if we can reduce this shock to the system, our graduates can hit the ground running. They'll be more used to interaction, doing projects with teams, even working with people in different geographical locations as we often do now. And that easing into what the workplace offers, I think is priceless, because if it never is a bad thing if you have a great exposure to what are the potential work that takes place. So if I can, because since Hazmi went through German system, I want to show off my system. So I was qualified as an architect. So in architecture, you have to do 3 years, and then you have to do a year out. So 1 year out before you can sit for your part 2 qualification. So this year out is significant. It's a whole year. You are in a company, you are in an architectural practice most of the time, and with 1 year you can actually finish a project. You can go through the whole cycle of starting a project, at least until the submission of the plans, etc. So you deal with clients, you deal with other consultants. So that to me is a is a really good way to get people to transition. So whether it's an apprenticeship system, whether it's a sort of a year out, whether it's a management trainee, whether it's a more structured internship that is normally done. And even internships, I have been in companies in Malaysia where the HR and the leadership pays a lot of attention to internship. Then the internship, like Hazmi mentioned, it can be really good, it can be really bad. There are really good examples. So some examples is where they really, they do profiling, they assign you a mentor, and they sit down with you on a weekly or on a monthly basis to make sure that understand how you're progressing and how you can increase your contribution to the company. So it's very company dependent from a certain perspective, but the TVET/apprenticeship model is a much more structured approach.
So it is akin to, so in simple terms, is the chartered accounting profession. They have 100. It's the gold standard in a way. That means. Yeah. You get embedded in, and you say that should be what every industry should follow, and through that we'll be able to accelerate and create better learning structures, which are closely linked to what employers really want. Right? Next, so we have a fabulous question, and this is something anyway I was going to ask: is apprenticeship only for people who are doing formal education, and then they get into workforce? So you do, like you just said, I spend a year before I graduate out. But is it also for, let's say, people like me who mid-career change, or people who are unemployed, who are seeking their next job? Can they go into these apprenticeship programs? And are there any such apprenticeship programs available today in Malaysia? Or there are some great examples around the world? Tough question or easy question? I don't know. It's anonymous, so somebody really has asked a tough question. Yeah. And Chikwan, Hazmi is eager to answer. Yeah.
No, I'm not. But I think this is a very hot topic as we speak to the in my current role, talking to the industry players. This is a super hot topic. Upskilling, reskilling. It's a big topic, because I think with all this disruption and changes that's happening, the pace of change that's happening, there's a lot. I think there's a pent-up demand for reskilling and upskilling. Yeah.
Okay. So you think it is compulsory to do, but almost nobody is doing it, or very few are doing it. Would it be fair to say, Anchikwan, very few are doing it, or almost nobody is doing it?
I would say that when you hear about reskilling, upskilling, what's happening in Malaysia, most of the time you're going to find, there's a training program. More often than not, it's funded by the government, but there's no next step. There's no real outcome, and some programs do have an outcome, but are less structured. So there needs to be an increase. The kind of programs that we're doing, like Perantis Iskandar, that needs to be more of it outside, because when we launch a program, in fact we're about to launch a program, but when we started talking to industry, like Hazmi said, there's a huge pent-up demand. People need people need people, even from different backgrounds, but they need to be transitioned into the work. So there has to be some structured training and development, which is great if it can happen while they're working, and there has to be a great support from the company itself that to ensure that this transition happens well. So I think the question also asks, is this just for unemployed? Is it only for fresh graduates? I think the apprenticeship model can work for anybody. So if companies are serious about great transition, about creating that scaffolding for people, especially if their reskilling is even tougher because you're going from a different different field into another field. Upskilling, it's more vertical, which is also doable. So whichever it is, again, my emphasis is structure. There has to be structure, there has to be discipline, there has to be clarity, from the employer has to be very clear what they want out of the apprentice, and the apprentice has to be very clear what they're in for. Because, I mean, if you look at attrition in companies, a lot of the time, some people actually didn't know what they were in for when they signed up for the company. And suddenly there's a mismatch of expectations, mismatch of skills. But whereas if you have this apprenticeship approach, there is a structured training and development on the job, with clear expectations. So what I urge to every company is to look at this model. We run apprentices kind of model, but we can actually run it for even one company if required. We're talking to a South Korean company at the moment who's in the food preparation area. We've talked to a Japanese company, which is in electronics. So I think the market is hungry for solutions that can help them take this approach and get them the right skills and the right people at the right time.
Fabulous. So maybe Anchikwan, on this point, let us be a little provocatively challenging. And let's also, I invite everybody who is listening, right? So I run a small company. It's relatively young. I want to start an apprenticeship program for people who are mid-career. That means who have already spent 15 years in employment and they want to change. And I want to invite this talent to do apprenticeship at Twimbet and to help us, because they come with different levels of experience. So can you help me and say, Manoj, this is the program that you should launch. And if you do this, it will be successful. So can you tell me, what should I do? How much should I pay? How long should it be? And how can I do it? Is there like a playbook that you can give me? So that is a question to both of you panelists. And to the audience out there, can you tell me, what should I do if you are looking for that kind of an apprenticeship? What do you expect from a company who will give you that apprenticeship? What will make you comfortable to give up your high salary to come and do reskilling with a slightly lower salary, but wanting to go through this journey? So yeah, I open the floor to all of you who are listening. Raise your hands, and I think our host will enable you. Our technicians will enable you to come and give your suggestions and tell us so that we can see how we can incorporate. So I don't know who wants to go first. Anchikwan, you want to take? If I have to introduce an apprenticeship program, my company a bit. What do you think I should do? What is my next step? Can you give me, let's say, if you are in my shoes, these are the 3 things you would do tomorrow.
Okay. I mean, firstly, you have to, if you wanted to do that, definitely we have a model that can be tailored. The main thing is, I think, there is a playbook, but that playbook has to be customized to the needs of the company at that point in time. So the first thing is a definition of what is required within the company, what sort of skill set, what's the expectation, etc. And then the training needs to be designed of how it's going to be on the job, so that preferably with live projects. And then there has to be commitment from that company which hires of a coaching and mentoring role, because this has been shown to greatly increase the chances of success, both for the company and the apprentice. So Manoj will be emailing you our proposal tomorrow, since you asked. So Hazmi has a second proposal. Yeah.
What does success look like? So you said first you define. I like the point, because sometimes we jump into it, we don't define what are the skills we are looking for, or what complementary skills which you may bring in, and we can add on top of it our skills. Second, you said a clear program of what they will go through. And third, you said a proper coaching and mentoring system to support them through the program. And at the end of this, what is the outcome that an employer should expect, and what is the outcome that the apprentice should expect?
So Manoj, you've been a consultant for a long time, so I'm going to throw it back to you in true consultant fashion. It depends, because it really, once you define in that definition process, you have to also define what success looks like. To me, from a general rule, to me is what impact is of the contribution of the apprentice by the time the program finishes. So that impact has to be measured either from a project perspective or from some form of deliverable that is tangible and clear. So I think at the definition of what the job is also needs to define the success definition as well.
Fair point. I think thank you for that, Chikwan. Hazmi, you want to?
Yeah,
add?
I mean, I'm bringing a German example. I used to work for this German company. It's a global, big conglomerate. And what happened was that from time to time, they would second their, let's say, I remember at that time it was the marketing people into the vendor ecosystem. And in fact, they clearly call it apprenticeship. And these are people in mid-management that wants to come in and look at kind of like different roles within this large organization. Because I think there are two things. One is it's about the cost. So like for someone to come and do spend some time with you, Manoj, who's going to pay his basic costs, right? So I think that from my experience, that was paid off by the large company. And so it was almost like a secondment where you spend some time there, you develop a specific skills. I remember exactly it was marketing communication. So they came in and understand marketing communication for that specific market. And then after, I think about a year, goes back to the parent company or the sponsor. So, and I see this is a very German thing to do where they really think hard about supporting the ecosystem. It's all about the ecosystem over there.
Fabulous. I think it's a great point. So that means, so for example, you're saying that a big company like Telecom Malaysia or Exiada or Maybank, they want their executives to learn about the future, to build skills around consulting. So what they do is they second their people to us. They keep paying their salary, but they get trained with us for a period of 6 months or a year on the skill sets. And maybe we pay a portion of their salary so that otherwise we treat them maybe not well, right? We got to have some liability, some commitment to it. And then they get to go back. I think that could be a fabulous model, and the government could give some incentives for these people or these companies, large companies, because they can afford it. Whereas I cannot afford to bring in somebody who's got 15 years experience and get him to and pay his full salary to do an apprenticeship, right? And Chikwan, you think, is this a model which is doable? Has this been done?
Yeah, this is a great model. In fact, in 2010, when I was in Khazanah National, we had this cross-pollination of GLCs seconding to government and government seconding to GLCs. I had in my team there was one person from EPU and another from Ministry of Tourism, and that was for 1 year. That was excellent because we could get insights into how EPU would approach things. As well as Ministry of Tourism, and how you can connect back with the regulators, with the government, and there's nothing like having immersion. I think the whole spirit of apprenticeship is actually immersion. You need to be in where the work is, and you need to experience the whole dynamics of what that place actually is. So in fact, we're proposing now even to the Johor state government to sort of revive this, because there is a framework for this to work. And I think so it does not only need to be between government and private. It can be private to private. It can be even government to government. It can be across national borders, which will make it even more interesting. So I think secondment / immersion, because secondment sometimes has some baggage to it as well, because you say, I don't really belong to that place. But immersion is like, you really, you're given a business card, you're given a position there, you're actually wholly representing the organization that you're immersed in. And that gives you a different sort of a feeling of ownership, and as well as ownership by that organization on the person that comes in.
Yeah, fabulous. Do we have, did we answer the questions for the audience? Is anybody in the audience wants to make a comment, wants to come on video or audio and pose a question? Please raise your hand. We are very eager to, have some form of interaction. The good news is we are getting a lot of questions. But if anybody wants to interact, I would love to. Can we have the first person who has the courage to show up on video and ask a tough question or an easy question?
Sorry, there's one interesting question, Manoj. How can baby boomers adapt to IR 4.0 working environment? My message, baby boomers, forget it. Just go out of the workforce lah. Okay, not really. Yeah. No. I think anyone can adapt, and if you have the right, if you have the right support, I think what a lot of people, I've been in 13 companies. What a lot of people tell me when in the different companies is a lot of the time there's no support system. You're being asked to do projects, you're being asked to do sometimes something new, but you're not given any scaffolding, you're not given any development, you just say, get it done. So there has to be understanding by the companies that does this, that there has to be a support system. And that's what an apprenticeship is. It is a support system, is a structured support system. So I think it can work. There was another question that asked, are our industries ready and our ecosystem ready to accept this approach? I say yes. I have companies in Johor approaching us to say, look, can you do it for us? A lot of companies do not have the luxury of spending a lot of time to design programs. So this is where they can come to people like us or other providers who have already a ready framework to implement together with the measures, together with the support system. For the unemployed one, we have a system where we call, there's the care bears. There's a mama bear and there's care bears that will oversee you, not only from the work perspective, but also on the emotional perspective of what you're going in through work. That to me is another success factor of ensuring that transition is successful.
Excellent. Do we have anybody who's any comments, any questions? Oh my God, difficult question. Again, what are the top 5 jobs of tomorrow? What are the top 5 jobs of tomorrow? Hazmi, you want to take a crack at it? What are the top 5 jobs?
I just know that management is a dying role. It'll be replaced by systems. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. So basically, we are beginning to have very flat organizations. You don't need people to just manage a lot of people.
Correct.
You need people to actually get things done, right? And you need cross-functional capabilities. You need emotional empathy as a key capability, right? So on one end, we have certain jobs like security. The world needs a huge amount of cybersecurity professionals. That's not going to go away. We need a huge amount of data scientists, simply because the amount of data we are accumulating is these are all technology related jobs. We need cloud architects, right? Today in Malaysia, less than 5% of all technology spending is going onto the public cloud. By the end of this decade, that may become 95%. So we just don't have the people. We just don't have the people to, So from a technology standpoint, those are the 3 clear immediate jobs that is available in plenty if you have the right skill set, right? And then you have the others, which is because of the other global trends that we see, which is environment. Recently we have committed now trillions of dollars to becoming environment friendly, right? And all of that change will mean we need lots of people with these new skill sets. Who can work on alternative energy, who can make the transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. So many opportunities. I think the problem is not the jobs. The problem is the people who are coming out are not in the jobs that are being created, and the current people don't have the skill sets there, right? So I hope I was able to answer your question. And I don't know, Enchikwan, you want to supplement it further?
Yeah, I think that the question that's not being asked while that question is being asked, because they ask what are the top 5 future jobs, is also what should I study, and will companies receive me? To me, in the end, when you're undergoing whatever education, you are actually learning how to learn. And that adaptability, if you look across a lot of surveys, the ability to adapt, not only for companies, for people, is a huge skill, because we never know when the company that we're in needs to pivot to do something new. So if you have people who can adapt, and if you're going through whatever subject you study, you have to be curious about other things around you. You got to mix with more people and understand what they're studying as well. Secondly, I think the call is also for organizations and companies to be more open about the background of people who apply for jobs. I think I was fortunate about 15 years ago when I went into Khazanah, because as an architect, normally, you're sort of there's a vertical of the construction industry, or you go to developer, etc. You're often typecasted because of what you have studied. But what you work since actually can increase your chances and the birth of the sort of jobs that you can go in. So I would call out to companies to not typecast people. There is a good way to evaluate and interview them, and adopt an apprenticeship approach to reskill, upskill. Because if you get a good person, they can be good at many other things that they're not yet good at. And this is where the company can play that role.
Absolutely. I think it's a great point. I was the other day, I was hosting one of the great designers of today's world, Tim Kobe, and he designed the Apple Store. So I asked him, because he designed the first Apple Store he's designed. So you can imagine how creative that company is. So I asked him, what does he do to hire? How does he hire? Does he hire based on the best design schools in the world? Does he have a diversity from engineering and from art? And he's saying, I hire now for attitude, and then we work on the skills. So we don't forcefully try to hire multidisciplinary skills. That's not what we are looking at. We are looking for people who are excited about bringing a change, wanting to do something different. So you're spot on, actually, and maybe that's the future, because cybersecurity is less to do with technology, but it is about people and processes as much as it is technology. Yeah. So how do we embed that?
Most people hack into the system not via the system, but via by people, by getting information from people which they shouldn't reveal. So that's a soft part as well.
Correct. Excellent. The other question is, while we are talking about jobs of tomorrow, one of the big challenges is when you think about, they made a movie. They made the movie, I think it's a US movie, Internship, right? So it projected a certain image of internship, working for Facebook, internship, and big technology firms. When you think about apprenticeship, you think about going and working for the neighborhood auto mechanic. Is that right? Is that wrong? Firstly, is that perception right or wrong? Second, how do we address that perception if it is a wrong perception? Why is it like that? Is it because the way apprenticeship programs where it was done more in hands-on jobs, is that the reason? Anchikwan, you want to help us understand that? Is my perception wrong?
I think, there needs to be a huge rebranding of apprenticeship, technical vocational, education, or the apprenticeship model, because I think, like I mentioned, it's very fragmented currently. Even in the Malaysian plan, the 12th Malaysian plan actually outlines rebranding TVET as which shows that there is a problem. That even companies, I think, may have a very traditional view on technical, vocational, and apprenticeship. Whereas it's a system that is so adaptable. You can use it for just about any discipline. It's just the framework, the structure, the monitoring, and the commitment, and the clarity. So if you have all those ingredients in, it's not a problem. One of the things that Fauzan mentioned, we have EduCity International College. We're actually trying to transform an academic program into an apprenticeship program, because there is allowance within the Ministry of Higher Education as well as MQA, the Malaysia Qualifications Agency, of what they call the 2U 2I model. 2 years in university, 2 years in industry. So the framework is actually there. So it's actually for us to implement, so that you can do a bit of the groundwork and knowledge part in the beginning. And so in the 2 + 2 years, I think that would be excellent if most of our academic programs actually go that direction.
Excellent. Hazmi, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, from what my understanding as well, it is a wrong perception. That apprenticeship is about vocational training. It's about wearing jumpsuits and getting your hands dirty. And that kind of put off a lot of people. And I think a rebranding exercise has to be done to change that perception. But there are some I remember I started off my apprenticeship in a jumpsuit. I had 5 different tools in my blue overalls, and I carry a metal toolbox. And I also believe that the employers have to play a role. The employers have to change the mindset. So if you walk in any manufacturing plant or companies out there, you see that somebody is doing the office work, the office versus the workers' canteen. The gap is huge, right? So companies are willing to spend a bit more in the office, but how their shop floor employees, where they rest and their canteen, sometimes quite often is an afterthought, right? I think so. I think it takes 2 to tango in terms of changing this perception. I think companies need to create a better environment for the shop floor, for example, or the practical jobs, for example. I think that's quite important.
Excellent, great. So I think we're going to have the results from the first poll. Let me see if anybody said training is. We got 0 per 100 out of 100, full marks. You don't get these grades in colleges these days. But yeah, good. So, we have a lot of good questions coming in. The next question is, okay, let's say if I go and I set up an apprenticeship program, I bring in 10 people, and then those 10 people are not performing as per expectation, right? What is the backup plan for the company? How do we still use these people? Because the tenure may be defined for a year. So how do we structure the program so that the company doesn't end up with a lot of waste baggage? I think it's a fair question. I think must be one of the company leaders who's asking this question. Any suggestions, Enchiguan?
Okay, I think this is where I emphasize on definition at the beginning and the selection process. Of course, it will not be 100% foolproof, but that matching of the job and the apprentice, at least from the capacity for them to grow into the role, has to be there. So if the screening process is not done well, then it's unfair both on the company and on the apprentice themselves. So that definition at the beginning is highly important. If it's happening within during the apprenticeship program itself, I think again that support system has to be there. But in the end, you have to put your hand up and say some people cannot cut it. I mean, that's a reality. They show a lot of enthusiasm at the beginning. If they are not performing, you give them a chance or a couple of chances, but you have to perform. I mean, that's the bottom line. If you can't perform, if the role is clear, the scope is clear, the way forward, the development is being done, and there's still non-performance, then there has to be a way to let them out of the system. But The expectation has to be set right. The screening process has to be done right, and that it would generally eliminate those sort of problems. When I was with another government agency, we ran a program, apprenticeship program, with about 92 to 95% success rate, and the only the 5%, 5 to 7% of attrition was primarily because of either there's personal or family issues which they couldn't avoid, so it's understandable, or sometimes they got an even better offer, which you also don't want to stop people if they have some a way to contribute more to the economy of the country. But it also depends on the program and how they tie them down. At least you don't want to spend a lot of money on a person and suddenly they disappear. So what we recommend, if there are other employers who feel that they want that person, you got to buy out their contract lah, because there's a sum of money already invested.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. Hazmi, you want to add, or should we?
Yeah, I mean, I remember my time. You don't have to stay with one company for that entire 12 months. So you can kind of break it up 3 months here, 3 months there, and so on. And people do move around. And I do remember that if you struggle, I mean, if you're just not people don't want you, or you just can't perform for whatever reason, you end up maybe doing, you come back to your 4th year 2 years later, right? So the onus is on you to do well so that you can finish your degree and move on at that timeline, right? So if you're not contributing, you might end up, staying in that 3rd year or practical year a bit longer than you want to.
Correct. Okay.
If I may add, that early exposure to work, sometimes if it's not successful, it can actually be taken positively, because suddenly you know what you don't want to do. And as you progress in you go back to your study, then maybe there's certain specializations that you want to say, I want to go this direction, I don't want to go that direction. So to me, overall, there can be a positive effect.
Correct. I agree. I think fabulous. Okay, let's go to the second poll question. I think we have a second poll question. Nabila, can we have it, please? Excellent. Oh, do you think online training is impactful? Yeah, this is a slightly more tricky question, because it works for people, it doesn't work for people. Yes, no. Okay, let's have your answers there. Okay, we got a few more questions. I think this is an interesting one from Noor Dalili. She says, can I know the opinion of both the speakers? Both of you have done well in your careers. Is it worth if local graduates doing apprenticeship abroad and then come back to work in Malaysia? Like Hazmi.
Yeah.
Is that a good idea? Is it to get the exposure and come back? You think it is something you encourage people to do?
100%. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, if you have an opportunity to work outside Malaysia, by all means do it. If you're even offered a job that that's not 100% match to what your qualification is, do it. Because my argument is always, when they offer you a job, they actually see your potential. They see that you have a capability that they're willing to actually give you an offer letter. So by all means, do it. And do you come back to Malaysia? Maybe you don't come back immediately. Maybe you come back immediately. Doesn't matter. But if sometimes I think there's also a perception that people feel, oh, if I leave the country, I'm betraying the country. I'm not contributing. Sometimes it's better for you to grow outside and contribute indirectly, or later come back to the country, because basically, the whole sort of talent pool. I mean, look at India. We just had the CEO of Twitter, an Indian-born person, become the CEO of Twitter, and look how the corporate figures within the US that came from India have contributed back to India. So you don't necessarily need to work in the country to contribute to that country. So by all means, please go, and if you got any other offers, also offer to us lah.
Yeah, and check on how can you help them? How can we help these? Because doing an internship abroad, usually governments, work permits, they're all very complicated, not easy to get it done. If you try to get a work permit in Singapore or in UK or in Australia, God has to intervene now, right? Because we need divine intervention. But the good news is you can do it online now. That's a powerful alternative, right? You can still be part of a global company or a company in Denmark or a company in China, and you could do that. So that's one alternative. But is there anything that we can do to support? Is there anything the government of Malaysia can do to support? How can we enable more people in Malaysia get access to global internships? How can you enable more people, let's say in China or India or Indonesia, do internships with companies in Malaysia? What can we do?
So if you talk about governments, currently, if you're a graduate in the UK or in Canada, they actually allow you to work for 2 years within the country once you've graduated, and you can either participate in any form, whether it's an internship, you want to start your own business, etc. I think it's high time Malaysia does that. I mean, we've been campaigning to the Immigration and the Ministry of Higher Education to say that if we allow graduates to work in Malaysia post-graduation, even if you were to do, you must get a CGPA of 3 minimum, even with some conditions. I mean, our aspiration as an international education hub will increase tremendously because you're allowing talent to remain here, and they're going to spend their money here. They may even get married, start a family, contribute to the economy here. So it's a global workplace now. You want diversity in thinking, you want diversity of background, you want diversity of from disciplines to come into your workplace. Secondly, we're actually, EduState Academy is working with a very interesting company where we hope to open virtual internships. And virtual internships, this is a very structured program. Very interestingly, the students pay, not the company. So the students pay to participate in a virtual internship. And this internship can be recognized as part of the curriculum. And since the pandemic, this company has boomed. They quadrupled the number of applicants, but they have a very simple ask of the company that the interns will go to, which is C-level involvement is mandatory.
Great point.
Yeah,
if that comes to the next point, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's a great point you mentioned, Chigwan. I think Sapavi, I think mentions that requires management involvement as mentor and manager as a coach, and a direct supervisor as a program facilitator. Should have clear modules, so that and clear KRAs. I think you talked about it. So you have a ready playbook, and you give companies this playbook, and you help them implement this playbook. Is that what you're doing in Chigwan?
So currently our clients are the state government. And tomorrow we're about to sign an agreement with a national level body that wants to take this program nationwide. So we do have that. Plus we have many companies in Johor that's coming to us directly. Can you do an apprenticeship program just for the company? The one that we do is state government has funding from a Ministry of Finance. So that's to us is Perantis 1.0. We're working now on a Perantis 1.5 and Perantis 2.0. So 1.5 means government will give you some funding, but industry has to match that funding. And Perantis 2.0, it is fully funded by the industry and potentially partially funded by the student. So that there's a bit of ownership that when they work, part of their salary will go back to pay off a portion of the internship. That also creates commitment. So we do have all these models. We do have the playbook. Email me at one.saifuddin@my-iib.com. My number is 555.
I think you can type it in the chat so that everybody has access, and we'll all be able to reach out to you immediately after this. Okay, let's see. What is the next question? The next question, Hazmi, a specific question for you. Do you think fresh graduate needs to go through internship?
That's a good question. I don't think it's a must-have, but I interview a lot of people in my job, and if you ask me, everyone more or less have all the qualification, and what I kind of look at to stand out is what do they do to spend their time in during their breaks, their summer breaks, their end of the year breaks. Do they take on a job, for example? And for me, that's important. And of course, what kind of job do they do during these breaks? So I can imagine if someone who takes the initiative and go out there and do as much as internship as they can, even though there's no accreditation from the university. I think it will strengthen your CV, because at the end of the day, everyone has a similar degree. The score is more or less the same. People know how to answer interviews. So these are the little
You're saying you will hire somebody, the person who's done some internship has a higher chance of getting hired.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, if I may add, actually, I mean, if there is no internship program out there and these are to fresh to either people who are studying or fresh graduates, do your own internship program. You go find work, whatever sort of work, whether it's part-time, etc. I used to have friends during the architecture year out. They wanted to work for very prestigious architectural practices. And they said, okay, you don't have to pay me. I will sleep under the table. Just let me sleep in your office. But they worked for this top-notch firm. And when they came out, they were so marketable because the sort of exposure that they got. I don't espouse that do not sleep under tables. Do get paid as far as possible. And I encourage companies to pay. When you get interns, please pay them properly as well. Janganlah kasih 100 ringgit, 500 ringgit, give a bit more lah. Because that will also that will also encourage to a certain extent some of the quality of people that want to work with you if they know you have a structured program. There's in our Apprentice Iskandar program, when they're going through the program, they'll get 1,000 ringgit per month, even accommodation if they're in Johor, because we have accommodation right here. And we really screen the companies, and we really screen the participants. So yeah, I mean, fill up your CVs with work experience. There's worst comes to worst, if you have good ideas, start your own business. Why not? So yeah, I read a Harvard study recently that says that people who have hobbies tend to be a lot more creative. So sometimes pursue your hobbies. I have a online comic site. I have a hobby. I have a gift, online gift buying business, etc. But everyone should start some form of business and put yourself in the market from that perspective.
Great point. Hey, Hazmi, what are your hobbies? I think Enchikwan has said his hobbies. What are your hobbies?
My hobbies right now are my young kids. They take most of my time. So yeah, there you go. No life after work.
That's the best hobby. Yeah.
I think you are being modest. Hazmi, you should talk about your hobbies of cycling and right? Cycling is a big hobby, right?
Yes. I'm scared to talk about it because I would not be able to stop. So I'm scared to go there. It's a very long road.
It's okay. We have a mute button. Yeah.
But I just want to circle back to that point of when I did my placements, it's not because I managed to get hold of the HR person in Switzerland. I did my placement in Switzerland. It's because I was part of this program, international program, that has a branch in Malaysia. So I write into the Malaysian branch to say that I'm interested to be part of this apprenticeship, and I want to be placed abroad, for example. So I think having when I was in Germany, there were so many of these international programs. Some of them are funded by associations, business association. Some of them are funded by government, and so there are many international programs. I think the challenge in this country, when you look at, I think there are many smaller programs everywhere. I think I've known people who from Indonesia who got seconded here as part of the company's program. I think there's a lot going on here, but I think it lacks scale. So I think we need to just go in and say, okay, let's scale this up so that, you know, typically when Twimbit plans for their resources next year, you know, have apprenticeship in mind by default. You know, I think that should be we should think of how can we scale up to that level, that it is a norm, you know.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. It's a fabulous point. Okay, fabulous. So, you know, one other question, I think, Anchikwan, I think maybe this, you may have covered it, but I think maybe people didn't get it. You know, specifically the current pivot programs that you're offering, they are in what sectors, you know? And I also know that you also have some programs in sports, science, and leadership in sports. So tell us a bit more there.
So for Apprentice Iskandar, that particular program, the focus is on technology, but it can be any discipline. You know, sports, you mentioned sports science. There is a program that we're doing with the state government on getting coaches, but coaches who know how to analyze data and use data analytics to actually look at their players, for example. So there's always a technology element. So we even have engineering programs, AI programs, even a motorcycle mechanic program, Battery Coup. We work with batterycoup.com, but it's not just a mechanic. It's a guy who needs to understand how to use the system to diagnose and also you know, I think they've even got some sort of social media element linked to it, etc. So there's a technology play in Apprentice Iskandar. And we try to focus on jobs of the future. We have 2 jobs already open out there. In fact, we have people who's already enrolled. We have another 2 coming up very soon. And I think another 4 companies coming up after that. And hopefully with our signing tomorrow, we hope to bring this program nationwide. Again, going for companies, you know, it really depends on the sponsor or you know, what their focus areas are. Whether it's more skill-based, whether it's more technology-based. We're trying to accelerate part of the Digital Johor master plan in making Iskandar Puteri a digital hub, as well as because we have concentration on drones and robotics, AI, AR, VR, etc. within EduCity and within Iskandar Puteri. So that's the sort of companies we're attracting to offer jobs. So go to the EduCity Academy website. I mean, all the application forms are available there. And as more programs that we work with other parties will make those programs available, you know, to be applied to.
Excellent. Yeah, I think there is a huge job opportunity available. Manchester United is in deep trouble. They need a coach. So hopefully you can train and bring the supporters out of the misery they are facing. Yeah.
So I take it you're a long-suffering fan as well.
No. I'm in the happy lot.
Okay.
I'm in the happy lot, and you know, yeah, I'm in the happy lot.
Okay, just rub it in. Why don't you? Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, do we have any questions? You know, I think we have covered a wide gamut of issues. Any questions from anybody? Anybody wants to come on video, ask a question?
We got very shy lot today, so.
Yeah, I thought we had such a fabulous. If nothing else, at least tell us we are doing a good job. You know, you can type in the chat. I don't see anybody typing in the chat.
Send us lots of hearts. Yeah.
Hello, is everybody there? Anybody there? Let's see. How is this going? And you know, give us some feedback. Okay. No question. Okay, great. No worries. I think you know. So we have covered most of the things I wanted to cover. Any final comments from you, Hazmi? about what did you take away, Hazmi? Now, you are a reasonable sized employer in Malaysia. Maybe one of the things I wanted to ask you also was, governments are doing a lot. Governments give incentives to companies to say, come and create jobs, right? Does that need to change now? Because I don't think the problem is about jobs. The problem is about the readiness of the talent. So, remember we had a chat about this. Maybe the government incentive structure should change. So it was not like Frost & Sullivan was not creating jobs in Malaysia. There were lots of jobs, but we couldn't just fill them with the people we wanted, right? So what is your recommendation? What is your suggestion on this?
I kind of disagree with how they measure the impact. So they measure the impact by measuring number of jobs. And I think that shouldn't be the way, or maybe there should be another kind of measurement, which is the kind of jobs that a company creates and the kind of impact that kind of talent, once they go into, they move on in their careers, would create along the way. And I think quality jobs, it's something that people don't really, go down granularly to measure. They just measure, okay, I can hire, this company hires 100, 200 people. But if it's a job that doesn't have an exciting career pathway, maybe that's not a great impact to the country.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we have a huge problem. I believe in the next 5 to 7 years, every country around the world is facing a huge challenge with managing the expectations of their citizens. Simply because the new technologies are coming in so quickly, they're creating these new kind of jobs. The old jobs are going away so quickly, right? So you have a population which is sitting unemployed, not making money, getting restless, getting worried, and you have companies struggling to have the new jobs. So struggling to fill the new jobs. So clearly, from what you mentioned, I think all of government incentives should go into what companies are doing to train people, rather than say, oh, here's an incentive if you create jobs. If you have enough thrown in to train people for these new areas, automatically we will create the nation ready with the talent, right? What do you think, Anchikwan? Is that a shift we should take? Because FDI normally is associated with new jobs created. Can they say change the FDI and based on how much money, or incentives given to companies based on how much money they invest into training?
Yeah.
And the large companies to come and run large programs in collaboration with universities such as yours.
Yeah, I think government has to focus those incentives for real and quality training that leads to jobs. So it's the identification, and there has to be enough discourse with industry, because I think we don't really have, if we were to look at data available, if you want to know unemployment data, you can go to Perkeso, for example, you can go to state government, you can go to the MOHI to see probably who's graduating this year, etc. But we don't have a centralized, comprehensive, accurate database on this match or mismatch, etc. So I think we need to work from a good base, so that the knowledge is right. Second is, I do agree that there should be, if we want to, when international companies come into Iskandar Putri, the first thing they will ask, where's the talent? If I open an office, I want 100 people, where's the talent going to come from? So this is one of the things that we hope to play the role of matching talent together with the jobs out there. And there has to be, again, structured programs, a way to go, like or to use your words, the playbook. The other thing I like to talk about is there is this phenomena of the Great Resignation. I think that's a huge outflow of people from the job market in the US, in a lot of developed countries. I think maybe to a certain extent even in Malaysia. I mean, this is a wake-up call to companies. There are different ways for you to deal with employees. There can be, more remote work. There can be, people are getting a bit more choosy sometimes on the jobs that they want to go to based on, the ethos of the company. What does the company stand for? Plus companies which are a bit more flexible. So companies that can readily adapt to, if there is another lockdown, etc., you can quickly switch and provide a satisfactory working experience together with the right support system. So these are the sort of companies that's going to attract the talent. So the agility now is actually now starting to shift on the part of the companies. It's required of companies. Otherwise, you're going to lose people. And as the economy recovers, people who left, they're probably not going to go back to the same jobs either, because they've tasted what it's like to be out there. So again, this is very much why sort of a very structured support system is required, whether it's through apprenticeship program and other ways of doing it. Companies need to do a big rethink to address the big resignation.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Nabila, if we can have the results of the last poll quickly. Let's see the results. Oh, yeah, there's a fair bit of people thinking that online training is not impactful. Yeah, we would have thought that with digital transformation, we would have got comfortable with online training. We talked about online training being so much more personal, but majority people say it is not. And so, what do you take away from it? Is it because the way it is structured, the content delivery, the interactivity is not done well? Is that why it is? Or we really need, or this pandemic is exposed how ineffective this glamorous vision we had of online being highly personalized and effective?
Well, if we take the example of universities, a lot had to shift online, and then we had schools, a lot had to shift online. I think universities, to a certain extent, are a lot more prepared to move their stuff online, and I think the learners are more, independent, etc. But this, to me, underlines one basic thing that you mentioned: quality. Because you cannot expect a face-to-face to be translated to online just by transferring into a video. There are many other considerations. I've been involved in e-learning since 2001, and there's really good online learning. There's really bad online learning. There is the approach of doing blended learning where you have some physical or some face-to-face and some in a mass. So the pedagogical or andragogical when it comes to adults in the workplace is an andragogical approach to education has to be adopted. There's a lot of science to this. All the research has been done. There are effective ways of doing online training. We under EduC Academy, we've conducted for several corporations with high satisfaction rates because it's very interactive. You can't put a video, slap on a couple of questions and call it online training. It's not. So the quality, I think, has been shown to be one thing. And I think with the poll, is reflective of potentially their experience of going online training. I'll give you an example. About 5 years ago, I went on an online course in a MOOC, where it is a course by an instructional designer on instructional design. And I thought, wow, this is a prestigious university. I'm going to learn a lot about instructional design online, etc. But the delivery really sucked. I mean, this was a specialist PhD, but she couldn't communicate what she had to in a great way. So it shows how difficult it is to a certain extent. But it's not that difficult. There are expertise, there are methods, but you have to actually spend time on learning what is effective online method of delivery, and it's not simple. Don't take it lightly, and always take feedback when you conduct this, so that you know how to continuously improve, from your audience.
Okay. Okay, let's take the quick third poll. I think I think we have the last poll. Let's do that, and then I'll ask one final question, and we can wrap this up. So, can we have the final poll question? Training programs should be hands-on. Do you think training programs should be hands-on? Yes, no. And as you take this poll question, let's go to one of the other questions is asked by Nurlilavati, and she says, how to encourage fresh graduates to take short courses? Are short courses or training about skills, how do we encourage people to pick up these short courses at regular frequency so that they can, stay up to date? Like you said, you took up this course. How many people do it, and how do we, is there a structured way to encourage people to take up these short courses? What is your recommendation to students and to employers?
Sorry, Hazmi, reveal all in your experience of short courses. Yeah.
I'm trying to be practical as well, because I think the challenge for any fresh graduate young people is money, right? I remember being poor back then, no money, and yearning to have money, to have a proper salary. And I'm sure the young people today, they also have family responsibilities and commitment. So it's a balancing act, I think, of wanting to have all these weapons, so to speak, in your career, versus how can we do this and earn a living? I think it's trying to find that balance. So I think I'm a big fan of apprenticeship. So I'm going to say, even to your question, Manoj, earlier about the gap between employment or industry versus education, higher learning. I think having this solid apprenticeship program, it's the bridge. It creates agility for people. It creates income for these young people as well. So they don't eat chicken wings like I did. I used to eat chicken wings. I had fried chicken wings. I had sweet and sour chicken wings. I had chicken wing ketchup. I had chicken wings every day, because back then nobody eats chicken wings, right? So it used to be cut off and thrown away, and we students, we used to buy it in this big bulk. And so I think we got to look at that kind of balancing act of being able to feed yourself and gaining all these experiences and skill set. Yeah. So finding a balance, I think that's the key. And I think you can get that through a proper apprenticeship program that has that kind of scale and national level recognition. I think that is the catalyst, I think, that we're looking for.
Yeah, I think it's a fabulous point. You think about all the world's best football clubs. What do? They're incubating the next generation of talent there, right? Right from the age of 8 and 9.
Yeah.
And that is why we are so passionate about it. We follow them. We spend money every year with them, buy their t-shirts. It's because I think they have the best well-developed apprenticeship programs in the world. And maybe we got to learn from them, right? So people make their basic income in those programs as well, right? I think there's a lot that we can learn from sports and okay, let's get the final poll results, and then we can try and conclude this, because I think the next session is do you think it should be hands-on? 100% marks, but everybody wants it. I think people are tired of just studying. So clearly the case for integrating. So fabulous session. I think I've got a clarity on what it is. As an employer, I know what next to do. I need to reach out to Inchikwan and get hold of that playbook, all right, and use that playbook so that it's not just saying I want to do an apprenticeship. You have to do it in a structured manner for it to be effective. I think it's an exciting time for both the private sector as well as the government sector to collaborate to build this next set of talent, because problems exist for both people, right? It'll exist for private sector as well as for government. Any final words, Enchikwan, before we conclude this?
So if I may touch on that last question Hazmi was answering, memang betul. I mean, when you're a student, you don't really have the resources, to sign up for courses. But there are a lot of cheat sheets to do. Number one, if you're in a university, most of the time they will not object if you go to another class. When you have some spare time, you attend another class. I went to some law lectures, partly because my girlfriend was there. But you get exposure to a different subject matter. If you're in Boston, for example, you're a student at Harvard, you can go to a Yale class anytime. You can go to MIT class anytime. So having that ecosystem, which is one of the things that we hope to engender in edacity between the institutions as there, eventually you should be able to take a sort of a universal degree by taking a class in one institution, another class in another institution. So you get this umbrella sort of degree. That's not easy to do, but I think it's a good aspiration to have. Secondly, today, I mean, you got so many free resources online. You got so many, whether it's YouTube videos, whether it's MOOCs, there's so many online training that's available for free. There's discussion forums. Never ignore discussion forums. If you have a problem, just do a search. One of the answers will normally lead you to a discussion forum where they have discussed that thing extensively. You have TED Talks. You can gain so much knowledge between 12 to 18 minute bite size, rather than, only on Netflix or YouTube. Just go to a TED Talk, during lunchtime when you're eating and learn something new. TikTok is even moving in that direction. We've spoken to TikTok Malaysia on how to turn, TikTok into more of an educational platform because it's bite-sized learning through video. So to me, fresh graduates, or whether you're students or whether you're working, there's so many resources that were not available. Hazmi, during our time, man, ada kan? And now you can just click. You must. All you young guys should really appreciate that all of us in this room survive without Google and without YouTube. Can you imagine? That's a miracle in itself. So go to the resources online. I mean, my kids learn to cook various things by YouTube. Moroccan bread or Italian pasta and things like that. So the world's your oyster. It's up to you to do it.
Excellent. Fabulous. Thank you very much, Inchiguan. Hazmi, you want to make a last comment? Is it?
No, I just kind of add that, we are the library generation, not the Google generation.
Yeah, where you have to scroll through library cards, to look for stuff. Yeah.
So from the Google generation to the library generation, thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. I think we had a fabulous conversation. Wishing you all the very best, and let's continue the dialogue and see how we can have a greater collaboration between all the stakeholders, employers, employees, government, private sector, universities, to see how we can advance and develop the talent to meet the needs of tomorrow. So with that, thank you very much, and pass it back to Nabila.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I believe that was a really good session. So much insights from all the industry players. And I think that all of our participants joining us this afternoon have gained a lot from this discussion. Okay, so we are going to move to our second session later at 5 p.m. Viewers, we will now have about a 20 minutes break for Asar prayers, and also maybe you want to grab a bite and some water, and stay tuned for our second session happening shortly at 5 p.m. as mentioned, with the topic of high performance leadership, featuring Professor David Pendleton from Henley Business School. So don't miss this session. Tune in right after this. We'll see you shortly. Thank you, gents.